3 in the morning. Daniel Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, whiskey in hand, ice long melted. He never drank it, just held it same glass, same hour, same October ritual for 5 years. Below, the city glittered, cold, indifferent. His phone lit up. Business partner. Deals ready. Need you in Millbrook. Signature in person. He hung up without answering. Millbrook. In the bedroom. He pulled open the nightstand drawer. Passport. His fingers brushed past it and stopped on something small. Velvet. A box he hadn't opened in 5 years. Her ring. His thumb traced the edge of the lid. Almost. He shoved it into his carry-on instead of back in the drawer. Couldn't say why. 6 a.m. flight. Sign the papers. Yep. Come back. Forget. That was the plan. If you're watching from somewhere quiet tonight, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Sometimes the best company is knowing someone else is out there too. Millbrook looked smaller than he remembered. Daniel drove past the gas station where he'd filled up every Sunday morning. New owners. Different sign. The diner on Main Street still stood, but the awning had faded from red to a washed-out pink. The smell of fried bacon drifted through his cracked window. Same smell. Different decade. 5 years. Long enough for paint to peel. Not long enough for the streets to forget him. He parked outside the lawyer's office. 30 minutes. Signatures on 3 documents. Handshake. Staying in town long. The partner, a man named Reynolds, asked while gathering papers. Flying out tomorrow. Family visit. Daniel's pen stopped mid-signature. No family here anymore. Reynolds nodded. Didn't push. Small towns learned when not to ask. Back in the rental car, Daniel punched the hotel address into the GPS. The route lit up left on Oak, right on Maple, straight for 2 miles. He didn't take it. His hands turned the wheel the other way. Not muscle memory. Something else. Something he didn't want to name. Cedar Lane appeared on his right. 3rd house from the corner. White siding. Blue shutters. Clara's parents had left it to her before they passed. They'd planned to raise children there. He should keep driving. The car slowed. Lights. The porch light glowed amber in the October dusk. The living room windows showed curtains he didn't recognize, cream-colored. Not the green ones Clara had sewn herself. Someone lived here. His foot hovered over the gas pedal. The engine idled. A dog barked somewhere down the block. The smell of wood smoke drifted from a neighbor's chimney. Maybe she'd sold it. Before. Maybe her family took it back after a shadow moved behind the window. Daniel's breath caught. The figure crossed the room. Slim. The way a person moves when they're not thinking about being watched, reaching for something, turning. The small choreography of an ordinary evening. He knew that walk. He knew the angle of those shoulders, the slight tilt of the head. No. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The shadow passed behind the curtain again, paused at the window. For one long moment, it seemed to look out at the street, at him. Then it moved away. Daniel sat frozen. The dashboard clock ticked. 7:42. 7:43. His wife had been dead for 5 years. He turned off the engine, got out of the car, walked toward the door. The porch steps creaked under his weight. The same creak. 3rd board from the bottom. Clara had always meant to fix it. Daniel raised his hand to knock. The door opened before his knuckles touched wood. She stood in the doorway. Alive. Real. Her hair was shorter now, brushing her shoulders instead of falling down her back. A few gray strands near her temples that hadn't been there before. Lines around her eyes not deep, but present. The kind that came from squinting into too many early mornings. But her face, her mouth, the small scar above her left eyebrow from when she'd fallen off her bike at 12. Clara. Daniel's throat closed. His lips parted, but nothing came out. The October air felt thin. His lungs had forgotten how to work. Yes, her voice. Flat. The way someone speaks to a salesman or a stranger asking for directions. He stared. She didn't scream. Didn't gasp. Didn't throw herself into his arms or slam the door in his face. She just waited. Clara. His voice cracked on her name. Rusty. Like a hinge that hadn't moved in years. Recognition flickered across her features. Something shifted behind her eyes, not surprise, not relief. Something harder. Her jaw tightened. Her hand moved to grip the doorframe. "You shouldn't be here, Daniel." The words hit him like cold water. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "I don't how they told me you were dead." She finished the sentence for him. No inflection. A fact. Like the weather. "I know what they told you. The hospital. The papers I signed. I know what you signed." Her eyes held his. Steady. Unblinking. The warmth he remembered the way she used to look at him across the breakfast table. The way her face softened when she laughed. None of it was there. She looked at him the way she might look at a crack in the sidewalk. Something to step around. "Clara, please. I need to understand. I thought you were gone. For 5 years, I thought." "You thought." And she cut him off. Her voice didn't rise. That was worse. "You thought." "And what did you do with that thought? Daniel, did you come to the hospital? Did you ask to see me? Did you look at my face one last time?" His stomach turned. "Your mother said." "I know what she said." Clara's grip on the doorframe tightened. Her knuckles went pale. "You had 2 days. 2 days when I was lying in that hospital bed. 2 days when all you had to do was walk through the door and look at me. Ask one question. Just one." The porch light buzzed overhead. A moth circled it, throwing tiny shadows across Clara's face. "But you didn't," she continued, each word clear and deliberate. "You signed the papers. You got in your car. You drove away and never came back. Like I never existed. Like 7 years of marriage was a file you could close and put in a drawer." Daniel's legs weakened. He grabbed the railing. Cold iron bit into his palm. "I didn't know." The word sounded pathetic even to his own ears. "Clara, I swear to you, I didn't know. They showed me documents. Your mother said you were already cremated, that there was no point in—" "No point," Clara repeated the phrase slowly. "No point in seeing your wife's body. No point in saying goodbye. No point in asking if maybe, just maybe, somebody made a mistake." The moth hit the bulb with a soft ping. "I was in a coma." Her voice dropped, quieter now, but no softer. 2 weeks. Woke up alone. No husband. No explanation. Just nurses who wouldn't meet my eyes and bills I couldn't pay." Daniel's hand ached from gripping the railing. He couldn't let go. If he let go, he might fall. "Why didn't you find me? After you woke up, why didn't you—" "Find you?" Something like a laugh escaped her throat. Bitter. Short. "I spent the first year waiting for you to come back. Sat on this porch past midnight, wondering when you'd pull into the driveway. 2nd year, I stopped waiting. 3rd year, I found out what really happened. You know." "I know." Clara straightened. Her hand released the doorframe. "I've known for 3 years, and you know what I figured out. It didn't matter. Because your mama didn't hold a gun to your head. She didn't chain you to that car. She told you I was dead, and you believed her. You didn't check. You didn't fight. You just left." A sound from inside the house. Small feet on hardwood. "Mommy!" Daniel's chest seized. A small face appeared at Clara's hip. A boy. 4, maybe 5 years old. Dark hair that fell across his forehead. A stubborn chin. And eyes. His eyes. Daniel Carter's eyes stared back at him from a face he'd never seen before. "Mommy, who's that man?" Clara's hand moved to the boy's shoulder. Gentle, protective. The gesture automatic. Practiced. "No one. Sweetheart." Her voice changed for the child. Softer. The warmth Daniel remembered it was there. Just not for him. "Go finish your supper. I'll be right in." The boy looked at Daniel once more, curious but not afraid. Then he disappeared back into the house. Clara turned back to Daniel. "Leave. That's my— Leave. Daniel." She stepped back. Her hand moved to the door. "You made your choice 5 years ago. I've made mine." The door closed. Soft. Quiet. No slam. Just a click. And she was gone. Daniel stood on the porch. The moth still circled. The 3rd step still creaked when he shifted his weight. Inside, he heard Clara's voice, muffled through the walls. "Who was that, Mommy?" And her answer, clear enough to reach him through the door. Just an old acquaintance, honey. Nobody important. Nobody. Daniel Carter, the man who had built an empire, who signed deals worth millions, who had everything money could buy, stood on a creaky porch in Millbrook and listened to his wife call him nobody. The porch light flickered. He didn't move. Daniel didn't go back to the hotel. He sat in the rental car until the porch light went off, until the living room windows went dark, until the whole street fell into the heavy silence of a small town after 10 o'clock. His phone showed 3 missed calls from his assistant, 2 emails marked urgent, a text from his business partner asking if he'd made his flight. He turned the phone face down on the passenger seat. The Millbrook Motor Lodge, the only motel in town, gave him a room with beige walls and a floral bedspread that smelled faintly of industrial detergent. Daniel lay on top of the covers fully clothed and stared at the popcorn ceiling until the numbers on the alarm clock blurred. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5, 17 a.m. He didn't sleep. At 6:30, he was parked on Cedar Lane again, 3 houses down from Clara's, far enough to not be obvious, close enough to see the front door. The morning was cool. Dew covered the windshield. A garbage truck rumbled past, its hydraulic arms lifting bins with mechanical precision. A dog barked somewhere. A screen door slammed. The smell of somebody's bacon breakfast drifted through the neighborhood. At 7:15, Clara's front door opened. She came out first. Different clothes than last night jeans, a gray sweater, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She carried a small backpack, bright blue with cartoon dinosaurs on the front. Then the boy. He ran out after her, still pulling on his jacket, one arm in, one arm flailing. Clara stopped, turned, helped him thread his arm through the sleeve. She said something. He laughed. Daniel couldn't hear it through the closed car windows, but he saw it. The way the boy's whole face changed, the scrunch of his nose, the flash of small teeth. They walked to an old Honda Civic parked in the driveway. The car was at least 10 years old, a dent in the rear bumper. The paint on the hood had started to oxidize. Clara buckled the boy into a booster seat in the back, checked the straps, kissed his forehead, got in the driver's seat. The Civic pulled out. Daniel followed. He kept 2 cars between them, turned when they turned, stopped when they stopped. The route wasn't complicated left on Main, past the hardware store, past the bank with its faded American flag, into a neighborhood of modest houses and chain-link fences. They pulled into the parking lot of Millbrook Elementary, public school, brick building with a faded mural of children holding hands painted on the side wall. Daniel parked across the street. Clara got out, opened the back door. The boy jumped down, too impatient to wait for help. He grabbed his dinosaur backpack and slung it over one shoulder. Clara adjusted it to both shoulders, said something. He nodded, already looking toward the playground where other kids were gathering. Then he ran. 3 steps in, his foot caught on a crack in the asphalt. He went down hard, hands first, then knees. The backpack flew off his shoulder. Daniel's hand shot to the door handle, but Clara was already there. She crouched beside the boy, her hands gentle on his arms, lifting him to sitting. She examined his palms, brushed off the gravel. Her mouth moved. Daniel couldn't hear the words, but he could read the rhythm. Soft, steady. The way you talk to a child who's deciding whether to cry. The boy's lower lip trembled. Clara leaned in, whispered something directly into his ear. The boy's face shifted, confusion first, then a giggle, then a full laugh, bright and sudden, his scraped palms apparently forgotten. Clara laughed too. They knelt there on the asphalt, mother and son, laughing at whatever secret joke she'd shared. A teacher approached, checking if everything was okay. Clara waved her off with a smile. The boy scrambled up, grabbed his backpack, and ran toward his friends without looking back. Clara watched him go. Her hand rose a small wave he didn't see. Then she got back in the Civic and drove away. Daniel didn't follow this time. He sat in the parking lot and watched the boy on the playground. The kid had already joined a group of other children. They were playing some kind of game, running, tagging. The rules unclear, but the laughter constant. His son. The words felt foreign, abstract, like a math problem in a language he'd never learned. He had a son, A boy who went to public school and wore cartoon dinosaur backpacks and laughed at his mother's whispered jokes and didn't know his father existed. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His knuckles went white, then red, then white again. He thought about his penthouse, the view of the city, the whiskey he never drank, the 3 a.m. silence he'd filled with nothing. He thought about Clara, the gray in her hair, the lines around her eyes. The way she'd looked at him last night threw him, really, like he was something she'd already processed and filed away. She'd built a life, a whole life, without him. The school bell rang. The children lined up. A teacher led them inside. His boy disappeared through the double doors without a backward glance. Daniel sat in the empty parking lot. The sun climbed higher. The morning warmed. His eyes burned from no sleep. His hands trembled slightly too much caffeine, not enough food, not enough rest. He caught his reflection in the rearview mirror, bloodshot eyes, stubble he hadn't noticed. He looked like a man who'd been awake for days. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. And again, and again. He ignored it. Instead, he picked up the phone and scrolled to a different number, a number he'd called once a week for 5 years. Birthdays, holidays, Sunday mornings when he had nothing else to do. Mother. He pressed call. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. Voicemail. He hung up, called again. Voicemail. A 3rd time. A 4th. Nothing. Daniel stared at the phone. His mother always answered. She kept her phone next to her at all times. She told him that herself. In case you need me, she always said. A mother should always be reachable. 5 calls now. 6. 7. Each one went to voicemail after the 4th ring. She wasn't busy. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't unable to answer. She was avoiding him. Daniel set the phone down. He thought about Clara's words from last night, the precision of them, the way she'd laid out the timeline like evidence in a court case. 2 days, 2 weeks of coma, a year of waiting, 3 years of knowing what had Clara found out that he hadn't. And why was his mother, the woman who'd stood beside him at the hospital, who'd told him Clara was already cremated, who'd held his hand while he signed papers, why was she suddenly unreachable? Daniel checked the airline app. His flight home left in 3 hours. He looked at the empty schoolyard, the faded mural, the crack in the asphalt where his son had fallen. He closed the app, opened his contacts, scrolled to his mother's address. She lived 4 hours away. If he left now, he could be there by early afternoon. He started the engine. Daniel didn't drive to his mother's house. Not yet. He turned the car around and went back into Millbrook, parked on Main Street, walked into the first place that looked like it had been there long enough to remember, Patterson's General Store. The bell above the door jingled when he entered the same brass bell that had hung there for decades. The smell of old wood and coffee grounds and something sweet, maybe penny candy, filled the small space. The woman behind the counter looked up, gray hair pinned back, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She studied him for a moment, the way small-town people study strangers. Help you find something, dear. Daniel picked up a bottle of water from the cooler, set it on the counter. Just this. She rang it up, $1.50. He handed her a 5. You're not from around here. She made change slowly, her fingers sorting coins with practiced ease, passing through. Used to live here, long time ago. He pocketed the coins. Actually, you might remember someone, Clara Carter. Used to be Clara Mitchell before she married. The woman's hands paused on the register drawer, her eyes sharpened behind those reading glasses. You know Clara. I did, once. The woman closed the drawer slowly. She looked at Daniel again, really looked this time, taking in his expensive watch, his leather shoes, the rental car visible through the window. Well, I'll be. It wasn't a question. You're him, the husband. Daniel's throat tightened. Yes, ma'am. The woman's mouth pressed into a thin line. She pulled off her reading glasses and let them hang on their chain. Mildred Patterson. She didn't offer her hand. I've owned this store since 1987. I remember Clara. Remember when she came back to town, too. When was that? 5 years ago, middle of winter. Mildred leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She showed up at her folks' old house, the one they left her when they passed. Lord rest them. Alone, pregnant, maybe 7 months along. By the look of her. Daniel's water bottle crinkled in his grip. She came in here for groceries that first week. I asked where her husband was. Mildred shook her head slowly. She got this look on her face like I'd asked her to explain something she couldn't understand herself. All she said was, "He's not here anymore." Wouldn't say more than that. Didn't have to. We could all see she was hurting. Did she say what happened? Not to me, but this is a small town. Honey, folks talk. Mildred's eyes held his. We heard she'd been in some kind of accident. Car wreck. Down south. Spent 2 weeks in a coma at the hospital. Doctors said it was a miracle the baby wasn't harmed. Her body protected that child, even when she couldn't protect herself. When she woke up, her husband was gone. Vanished. Like he'd never existed. Daniel set the water bottle on the counter. His hand was shaking. He shoved it in his pocket. She thought I left her. Didn't you? The question landed hard. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it. Mildred watched him. Her expression wasn't cruel, just tired. The look of someone who'd seen too much of human nature to be surprised by any of it. I don't know what happened between you two, she said. Don't reckon I need to know. What I do know is that girl spent her first winter here alone, 8 months pregnant, working at the diner until her ankles swelled so bad she could barely stand. Went to St. Mary's every Sunday. The ladies there helped with the baby after he came. Then she took in sewing, alterations, mending, whatever folks needed. Worked at the dry cleaners during the day, sewed at night after the boy went to sleep. She sold the house. Had to. Medical bills from the accident, hospital stay, the birth. Mildred shrugged. Insurance didn't cover half of it. She sold the house, moved into that little apartment over on Oak Street. Been there ever since. Daniel thought about his penthouse, the view, the silence, the whiskey he never drank. How did she manage with a baby, working 2 jobs? Same way women have always managed. Mildred's voice carried an edge now. She just did. Didn't have a choice. Did she? That boy needed to eat, needed clothes, needed a roof. She paused. Needed a daddy, too. But she couldn't give him that. The bell jingled. Another customer walked in, a young mother with a toddler on her hip. Mildred nodded to her, then turned back to Daniel. You want to know about Clara? Go talk to Ed Walters. He lives 3 doors down from where she used to be, on Cedar Lane. He watched that girl sit on her porch in the middle of the night, waiting. Waiting for what? Mildred looked at him like he was slow. For you. Daniel found Ed Walters on his front porch, a cup of coffee cooling on the railing beside him. 80 if he was a day. White hair. Flannel shirt despite the warming morning. He watched Daniel approach with the patient wariness of a man who'd outlived most of his hurries. Mr. Walters. Who's asking? Daniel Carter. I used to. I know who you are. Ed picked up his coffee, took a sip, set it back down. Saw you on that porch last night. Watched the whole thing. Daniel stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. You saw. Hard to miss. Man standing on a porch for 20 minutes after the door closes. Doesn't exactly blend in. Ed gestured to the empty chair beside him. Might as well sit. Legs don't look too steady. Daniel climbed the steps. Sat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The neighborhood was waking up around them. A lawnmower started somewhere down the block. A screen door slammed. Somewhere nearby. A radio played old country music, the sound tinny and distant. She used to sit out there at night, Ed said finally. That first year, after the baby came, I'd get up to use the bathroom. Happens a lot at my age. I'll tell you, and I'd see her through the window, sitting on that porch swing, middle of the night, just watching the street. Watching for what? Ed turned to look at him. His eyes were sharp despite his age. You know what? Daniel's chest tightened. I asked her once. About 3 months in, went over there, told her it wasn't safe. Young woman sitting outside alone at that hour. You know what she told me? Daniel shook his head. She said, I'm just checking if he's coming back. Ed took another sip of coffee. She did that for a whole year, every night. Rain, snow, didn't matter. Just sitting there, waiting. And then she stopped. Ed set his cup down. One night, she just stopped coming out. Next time I saw her, she was different. Harder, maybe, or just finished. Like she'd closed a book and put it on the shelf. Daniel stared at the porch across the street, Clara's old porch. The swing was still there. She found out something, Daniel said slowly, about what really happened. She told me she knows, has known for 3 years. Ed was quiet for a long moment. Don't know anything about that, he said finally. But I'll tell you this, that girl called somebody about 6 months after she came back. I was sitting right here when she came out to get her mail. She was shaking, white as a sheet. Said she'd just talked to someone who told her things she couldn't believe. Daniel's blood went cold. What things? Didn't say. Didn't have to. Ed looked at him steadily. But I'll tell you what, she never called that number again. And she never once asked about you after that. Not to me, not to anyone. He paused. Whatever she heard, it was enough. Daniel stood. His legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. Mr. Walters, thank you. Don't thank me. Ed picked up his coffee again. Just go find out the truth. And then figure out what you're going to do with it. Daniel walked back to his car. His phone showed 12 missed calls from his mother. She was calling now, finally answering, finally ready to talk. He rejected the call. Then he got in the car and started driving. 4 hours to her house. She'd had 5 years to avoid this conversation. She didn't get to control when it happened anymore. His mother's house sat at the end of a tree-lined street in Westbrook, colonial style, white columns, a garden that someone else maintained, roses pruned to geometric perfection, boxwood hedges trimmed sharp as knife edges, the kind of house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Impressive from the outside, careful about what it showed. Daniel pulled into the driveway at 2:47 p.m. Her car was there, a silver Mercedes, polished so clean it reflected the afternoon clouds. She was home. He didn't call ahead, didn't ring the bell. He used his key, the one she'd given him years ago, for emergencies, and walked through the front door. The foyer smelled like lilies, fresh ones. From the arrangement on the entry table, classical music played softly from somewhere deeper in the house. Chopin, maybe, his mother's favorite. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked its steady, expensive rhythm. Daniel! Her voice came from the living room, not surprised. She'd seen his car pull in. He followed the sound. She sat in her usual chair by the window, a book open on her lap, though he doubted she'd been reading. Her silver hair was styled perfectly. Cream-colored blouse, pearl earrings. At 72, Margaret Carter still dressed like she was expecting company. She looked at him. Her face arranged itself into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Darling, you should have called. I would have had Maria prepare something. Rosa, Daniel said. Her name was Rosa. The one before Maria, the one you fired. The smile froze. For just a moment, a fraction of a second, something flickered behind his mother's careful composure. Then it was gone, smoothed over like a wrinkle in silk. I see. She closed the book, set it on the side table. You went to Millbrook. I saw her, talked to her. Daniel's voice was steady, flat. He'd had 4 hours in the car to rehearse this. 4 hours to push down the screaming in his chest. She opened the door. Mother, she's alive. She's been alive this whole time. Margaret folded her hands in her lap. Daniel, please, sit down. You're making me nervous. Standing there like that. I have a son. The words hung in the air between them. His mother's hands tightened in her lap. Just slightly. Just enough. He's 5 years old. Daniel continued. He has my eyes, my chin. He goes to public school and wears a backpack with dinosaurs on it, and he doesn't know I exist. Daniel, did you know? Silence. The Chopin continued to play. Soft, elegant, completely wrong for this moment. Did you know she was pregnant when you told me she was dead? Margaret's gaze dropped to her folded hands. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, Her voice was calm, measured, the voice she used when explaining difficult truths to people she considered less intelligent than herself. Yes, I knew. Daniel's knees buckled. He grabbed the doorframe. She wasn't right for you. Margaret looked up at him now. Steady, unapologetic. I told you that before the wedding. I told you she came from nothing. Her father was a mechanic. For heaven's sake, her mother worked at a bakery. They had no connections, no education, no... She was my wife. She was an anchor. Margaret's voice sharpened. You had potential, Daniel, real potential. And she was going to drag you down to her level, living in that little town, working some mediocre job, giving you mediocre children who would grow up to be mediocre people. Daniel stared at her. This woman he'd known his whole life. This woman who had held his hand at the hospital, who had stroked his hair when he cried, who had told him everything would be all right. What did you do? Margaret smoothed her blouse. A small gesture, controlled. The accident was real. She ran a red light, not her fault. The other driver was drunk, but she was hurt badly. Head trauma. They put her in a medically induced coma to reduce the swelling. She paused. You were traveling. Bangkok, for that conference. I flew down to the hospital as soon as I heard, and I saw an opportunity. The word hit Daniel like a physical blow. Opportunity. I didn't lie to the hospital. Daniel, I didn't need to. They had all the correct information in their records. Clara Mitchell Carter, comatose, pregnant. Condition serious but stable. Margaret's voice remained clinical, detached. I lied to you. I called you in Bangkok. Told you she was gone. Told you there was no point in coming. The cremation was already arranged. I said, the paperwork was handled. You told me she was dead. I told you she was gone. Margaret lifted her chin slightly. And you believe me. You didn't call the hospital yourself. Didn't ask for records. Didn't get on the first flight back. You just accepted it. Daniel's eyes burned. His throat closed. I was in shock. I was grieving. You were relieved. Margaret stood, smoothed her skirt, walked to the window. You didn't love her anymore, Daniel. Not really. The marriage was struggling. You told me yourself, 6 months before you were thinking about divorce. You just didn't have the courage to do it. That's not. It is. She turned to face him. I gave you what you wanted. A clean break, a fresh start, no messy divorce, no custody battles, no alimony, just closure. And you took it. You didn't ask questions because you didn't want answers. The Chopin piece ended. Another began. Softer, sadder. She woke up. Daniel's voice came out barely above a whisper. She woke up, and I wasn't there. She gave birth alone. She raised our son alone. She spent a year sitting on her porch every night, waiting for me to come back. She wasn't supposed to wake up. For the first time, something like frustration crossed Margaret's face. The doctors said the odds were against it. And even if she did, I assumed she'd have enough sense to start over, find someone else, move on. I didn't expect her to go back to that little town and wait like a dog, waiting for its owner. Daniel flinched. She called this house once. 6 months after the accident, Rosa answered, and Rosa told her everything. Margaret's expression flickered. Rosa overheard things she shouldn't have. She was let go. Clara has known for 3 years. Mother, she's known what you did. And you know what she told me. It didn't matter. Because you didn't hold a gun to my head. You didn't force me to stay away. You gave me an excuse. And I took it. He pushed off from the doorframe. Stood straight. She's right. Margaret's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying you lied. You manipulated. You stole 5 years from me. From her. From a child who doesn't know his father. Daniel's voice was steady now. Cold. But I'm the one who didn't check. I'm the one who signed papers without asking questions. I'm the one who drove away instead of walking into that hospital room. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card, wrote his cell number on the back. I'm going back to Millbrook. I'm going to leave this number with Clara. She probably won't call. She probably won't want anything to do with me. And that's her right. Daniel. His mother's voice hardened. You walk out that door and don't come back. You'll be making the biggest mistake of your life. That woman will never take you back. You'll have nothing. He stopped in the doorway. I choose Clara. He didn't turn around. I choose my son, not you. He walked out, left the door open behind him, let her close it herself. In the car, his hands shook so badly he couldn't fit the key in the ignition. He sat there for a long moment, breathing, trying to breathe. His eyes burned. His chest ached. The smell of lilies seemed to cling to his clothes. He started the engine. 4 hours back to Millbrook. The drive was dark and quiet. He stopped once for gas, once for coffee that tasted like hot water. The radio stayed off. He needed the silence. It was past 10 when he pulled into the motel parking lot. The vacancy sign buzzed red and blue. His room key was still in his pocket. He walked toward his door and stopped. A folded piece of paper had been slipped underneath. Daniel picked it up, unfolded it. Clara's handwriting. He recognized it immediately, the same neat, careful script from grocery lists and birthday cards and the note she'd left on his pillow the morning he'd flown to Bangkok. 4 words. We need to talk. Patterson's, 9 a.m. Daniel arrived at Patterson's General Store at 8:43 a.m., 17 minutes early. He'd barely slept 3 hours on that motel bed, staring at water stains on the ceiling, rehearsing what he would say. He had his ammunition ready. The truth about his mother, a full apology, practiced until the words felt smooth, and the offer help with medical bills, a trust fund for the boy, whatever she needed. He'd written his cell number on a business card, tucked it in his pocket. He would fix this. He had to fix this. The bell jingled when he walked in. Mildred Patterson looked up from behind the counter, glanced at him once, and pointed to a small table in the back corner without a word. The smell of fresh coffee and old wood filled the space. Clara was already there. She sat with her hands wrapped around a cup, no makeup, hair pulled back, the same gray sweater. She looked up when he approached, and her face showed nothing. Not anger, not hope, just patience. The kind you have when you're waiting for something unpleasant to be over. Daniel sat across from her. The chair scraped against the wooden floor, too loud in the quiet store. Thank you for meeting me. Clara didn't respond. She lifted her coffee, took a sip, set it down. I went to see my mother, Daniel said. The words came out in a rush. She told me everything. What she did, how she lied to me about your condition, made me believe you were... He stopped, swallowed. I know the truth now, all of it. Clara watched him. Her expression didn't change. I know she knew you were pregnant. I know she deliberately kept me away. I know she's the reason I wasn't there when you woke up, when you gave birth, when you... His voice cracked. He pressed on. I'm so sorry. Clara, I can't tell you how sorry I am. If I had known, if I had any idea, you would have what... The question stopped him cold. Clara's voice was flat, not hostile, just tired. If you had known, she repeated slowly, what would you have done different? I would have come right away. I would have been there. Would you? She tilted her head. You were in Bangkok when the accident happened. Took you 3 days to fly back. And when you got back, you went straight to your mama's house. Not the hospital. Her house. Daniel's mouth opened, closed. She told you I was gone. And you believed her. Just like that. Clara's fingers tightened around her cup. You didn't ask to see my body. Didn't ask which funeral home. Didn't call a single friend of mine to say sorry for your loss. You just took her word for it. I was in shock. You were relieved. The word hung in the air. Daniel felt it land in his chest like a stone dropped in still water. That's not... Daniel... Clara leaned forward. Her eyes met his directly. I'm not your enemy. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm telling you what I've had 5 years to figure out. She paused. You didn't fight for me because part of you didn't want to. Your mama handed you an exit, and you walked right through it. Daniel's face burned. His hands, resting on the table, had started to tremble. I loved you. Maybe, Clara shrugged small, tired. But not enough. Not enough to ask questions. Not enough to push back. Not enough to walk into that hospital room and look at my face one last time. She took another sip of coffee. I've made my peace with that. Took me a few years, but I got there. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out an envelope. I want to help. The medical bills, I know things have been hard. Let me set up a trust fund for the boy, for his schooling, his future, whatever he needs. You don't have to take anything for yourself, but he's my son too. Let me do this one thing. Clara looked at the envelope, didn't touch it. No. Clara, please. I said no. Her voice hardened slightly. I don't need your money. Daniel, I don't want your money. I spent 5 years building a life without you. I work, I pay my bills, my son has food, clothes, a roof over his head. It ain't fancy, but it's ours. We earned it. I'm not trying to buy my way back in. I just want to help. Help who? Clara cut him off. Help me or help yourself feel less guilty. Daniel froze. Because that's what this is, isn't it? She pushed the envelope back toward him. You found out the truth. You found out your mama lied. And now you want to fix it. Want to write a check and set up a fund and make everything okay. Her eyes held his, unwavering. But it ain't about me. It's about you. You want to feel like you did something. Like you're not the bad guy. That's not fair. Maybe not. Clara finished her coffee, set the cup down with a soft click. But it's true. The store was silent. Somewhere behind the counter, a clock ticked. Daniel could hear his own breathing. Too fast. Too shallow. What do you want me to do? His voice came out smaller than he intended, almost pleading. He hated the sound of it. Tell me what you want, and I'll do it. Clara stood. She pulled on her jacket, a thin thing, not warm enough for October. I want you to leave us alone. Clara. I'm not saying this to punish you. She looked down at him. He was still sitting. She was standing. The power had shifted somehow. I'm saying it because it's what we need, what Ethan needs. We have a life, a routine, stability. You showing up, offering money, trying to fix things. It disrupts all of that. He's my son. He's my son. Clara's voice didn't rise, but something in it shifted. Steel underneath the tiredness. I carried him alone, birthed him alone, fed him, clothed him, sat up with him through fevers and nightmares and first days of school, alone, for 5 years. She pulled her keys from her pocket. You're his father by blood. That's all. Daniel stood, too fast. His chair scraped back and nearly tipped over. I'm not giving up. Clara paused, looked at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, I know you're not. That's why I agreed to meet you. She started toward the door. I wanted to tell you face to face so there's no confusion. My answer is no. Not to the money. Not to the visits. Not to the second chance you think you deserve. She reached the door. The bell jingled as she pushed it open. Wait. Daniel's voice cracked. Please, just wait. Clara turned, half in, half out. The morning light caught the gray in her hair. Tell me one thing, Daniel said. If I hadn't come back, if I'd never found out, would you have ever looked for me? Would you have ever told Ethan the truth? Clara was quiet for a long moment. I thought about it. In the beginning. She looked out at the street, at the ordinary morning unfolding. But then I learned something. What? She turned back to him. Her eyes held something he couldn't read. Rosa told me what your mama said to her, about how you sounded on the phone when she told you I was dead. Clara pulled her jacket tighter. She said you sounded lighter, like a weight had been lifted. The door closed behind her. The bell jingled, and Daniel stood alone in Patterson's general store, the envelope of money still in his hand, watching through the window as Clara walked away without looking back. His legs gave out. He sat down heavily. The chair groaned under him. His hands shook so badly that the envelope slipped from his fingers and fell to the floor. Mildred Patterson appeared at his table, set down a glass of water, said nothing, walked away. Daniel stared at the water, at his own reflection, warped in the glass. Clara was right. He hadn't come back to help her. He'd come back to help himself, to ease his own guilt, to feel like less of a failure, and she had seen through him completely. The motel room smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. A water stain spread across the ceiling in the shape of something Daniel couldn't name. He'd been staring at it for hours. 2:47 a.m., the same hour he used to stand at his penthouse window, whiskey in hand, looking down at a city that never asked him questions. Now he lay on a lumpy mattress in the only motel in Millbrook, and the questions wouldn't stop. His suitcase sat unopened by the door. His phone lay face down on the nightstand, battery dead. He hadn't charged it, didn't want to see the missed calls from his assistant, his partners, his life back in the city. That life felt like it belonged to someone else now. Daniel sat up. The bed springs groaned. His back ached from the cheap mattress and the hours of driving and something deeper than physical fatigue. His eyes burned 3 nights now with barely any sleep. His hands had a slight tremor that wouldn't stop. He reached for his carry-on, draped over the room's single chair. His fingers found the inner pocket, the small velvet box. He pulled it out, held it in his palm. The last time he'd looked at this box, really looked at it, he'd been packing for this trip. He'd almost left it in the drawer. Instead, he'd dropped it into his bag without knowing why. Now there was nowhere to hide it. Daniel opened the box. Clara's wedding ring caught the dim light from the parking lot outside. Simple gold band. No diamonds. She'd said she didn't want anything flashy. "I just want you," she'd told him. The ring is just a symbol. He remembered the day he'd bought it, the way his hands had trembled when he slid it onto her finger at the altar, the way she'd laughed and cried at the same time, the smell of her perfume, the sound of her voice saying, "I do." When had that man disappeared? He tried to remember the last time he'd felt that kind of certainty, that kind of joy. Before the long hours at work, before the arguments that turned into silences, before he started traveling more and coming home less. His mother's voice echoed in his head. You were relieved. Rosa's words passed through Clara. He sounded lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Was it true Daniel turned the ring over in his fingers? The inside was engraved. He'd forgotten about that. He tilted it toward the light from the window to read the words. Always. D always. He'd written that. He'd meant it. Standing in a jewelry store 7 years ago, he had meant it with everything he had. So, what happened? The ring blurred. Daniel blinked. His eyes were wet. He wiped them roughly with the back of his hand. Clara's words from this morning played back. You didn't fight for me because part of you didn't want to. She was right. She was completely right. He hadn't fought. Not for her. Not for the marriage. Not even for the truth. When his mother said Clara was dead, he'd accepted it because accepting was easier than asking. Easier than going to the hospital. Easier than looking at her face and confronting whatever he might see there. Coward. The word sat in his chest like a stone. Not deceived. Not manipulated. Those things were true too, but underneath them was something simpler. Something uglier. He'd been relieved when his mother gave him an exit. Clara was right about that. Some part of him, the weak part, the tired part, the part that didn't want to do the hard work of fixing a struggling marriage, had been grateful for the escape. And his mother had known. She'd seen that weakness and used it. Daniel set the ring box on the nightstand, stood, walked to the window. The parking lot was nearly empty. A pickup truck, a sedan with a cracked windshield. The motel sign flickered red and blue, buzzing softly. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass. What now? Clara didn't want his money, didn't want his apologies, didn't want him anywhere near her son, their son. And she was right to refuse. Everything he'd offered had been for himself. The trust fund, the help with bills, all of it was just a way to feel less terrible, to write a check and call it redemption. But redemption didn't work that way. You couldn't buy it, couldn't negotiate it, couldn't fix it with the same skills that closed business deals. So what was left? Daniel turned from the window, caught his reflection in the mirror above the dresser. Bloodshot eyes, 3 days of stubble. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair unishamed, dark circles like bruises. This was what he'd become, a man who had everything: money, success, power, and nothing that mattered. He walked to the mirror, stood in front of it, looked at himself. What would you do, he thought, if Clara never opened that door again, if Ethan never knew you existed, if there was no reward, no reconciliation, no second chance? Would you still do the right thing? The question echoed in the silence. He thought about the trust fund. Clara had refused it for herself, but it wasn't really for her. It was for Ethan, a 5-year-old boy who wore dinosaur backpacks and laughed at his mother's jokes and didn't know his father's name. That boy deserved something, not because Daniel deserved to give it, not because it would earn him forgiveness or access or love, but because it was right, because a father, even a failed one, even an absent one, should leave something behind for his child. Could he do that? Give without expecting anything in return? The man in the mirror didn't answer. Daniel walked back to the nightstand, picked up the ring box, looked at the inscription again. Always. He'd broken that promise. Shattered it into pieces without even knowing, but the word was still there, carved into gold, waiting. Maybe that was the point, not to fix what was broken, not to earn back what he'd lost, but to become the kind of man who could write that word and mean it, even if Clara never saw it, even if Ethan never knew. He closed the box, didn't put it away, set it on the nightstand where he could see it. Tomorrow, he would go to a lawyer, set up a trust for Ethan, anonymous. Clara could refuse to touch it, that was her right, but it would exist. It would be there when the boy turned 18, whether Daniel was alive or dead, forgiven or forgotten. And then, he didn't know. Maybe he would leave Millbrook, go back to his empty penthouse and his 3 a.m. silences. Or maybe he would stay, find a way to be present without intruding, watch from a distance as his son grew up. Either way, he would stop trying to fix things for himself, stop trying to buy his way out of guilt. He would just do what was right, whatever that meant, however small it was, however long it took. The ceiling stain stared down at him. The motel sign flickered. The night stretched on. For the first time in 5 years, Daniel didn't reach for a glass, didn't wish for numbness, didn't try to escape the weight sitting on his chest. He let it stay. Sometime before dawn, he slept. When he woke, pale October light filtered through the thin curtains. His phone was still dead. The ring box sat on the nightstand, exactly where he'd left it. And there was a folded piece of paper on the floor, just inside the door. Daniel stared at it. His pulse quickened. He got up, crossed the room, picked up the paper, unfolded it. Clara's handwriting. He recognized it immediately. 3 words. I saw you. Daniel found Clara at the elementary school parking lot. 3 o'clock. Pickup time. She stood near the entrance with the other parents, arms crossed against the October chill, watching the doors. He didn't approach, just waited by his car, a manila envelope in his hand. She saw him. Her body stiffened. She said something to the woman beside her, then walked over, her stride quick and purposeful. What are you doing here? I'm not staying. Daniel held out the envelope. I just needed to give you this. Clara looked at it but didn't take it. I told you I don't want your money. It's not for you. He kept his hand extended, steady. It's a trust. For Ethan. Becomes his when he turns 18. You don't have to touch it. Don't have to acknowledge it. Don't have to tell him where it came from. He paused. But it'll be there, in case he ever needs it. Clara's eyes searched his face, looking for something. The angle. The catch. Why? Because he's my son. Daniel's voice was quiet. And because it's the right thing to do. Not because I want anything back. Not because I'm trying to buy my way in. Just because. She didn't take the envelope. Your note, Daniel said. You said you saw me. What did you mean? Clara was silent for a moment. Behind her, the school doors opened. Children began streaming out, backpacks bouncing, voices raised in the particular chaos of release. Couldn't sleep last night, she said finally. Drove past the motel. Don't know why. Maybe wanted to see if you'd left. She uncrossed her arms. Your light was on. Saw you through the window. Standing there in the middle of the night, holding something in your hand. The ring. She'd seen him with the ring. Watched for a while. Clara continued. You didn't move. Didn't pace. Didn't reach for your phone or pour yourself a drink. You just stood there, like you were trying to work something out." Daniel didn't respond. There was nothing to say. "Then you went to the nightstand, set something down, sat on the edge of the bed with your head in your hands." Clara's voice softened slightly, just slightly. "You looked broken." "I was." "Good." The word should have stung. It didn't. It felt right. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Daniel said. "I know I don't deserve it. I know what I did, what I didn't do, can't be undone." He lowered the envelope slightly. "But I needed you to know something." "What?" "I talked to my mother again. Before I came back, told her I'm done. That I choose you and Ethan over her." He paused. "She's out of my life. For good." Clara's expression flickered. Something moved behind her eyes, not forgiveness, not softening, but acknowledgement. "And the trust?" she asked. "Set up through a lawyer here in Millbrook. Ethan won't know it's from me unless you tell him. I've also arranged to have your medical bills from the accident paid off. All of them. The hospital, the birth, everything." Clara's breath caught. A small hitch. "I didn't ask you to do that." "I know. I don't want to owe you anything." "You don't. This isn't a trade." Daniel set the envelope on the hood of her car. "These are the papers. You can burn them if you want. Throw them away. Pretend this conversation never happened. I won't ask again. Won't show up at your door. Won't try to force my way into your life or Ethan's." He stepped back. "But I need to ask you one thing. Not for me. Just so I know." Clara waited. "If I had come to the hospital, if I had walked into that room, looked at your face, asked questions instead of believing what my mother told me, would it have made a difference?" Clara was quiet for a long time. Around them, children ran to their parents. Car doors opened and closed. Engines started. The smell of exhaust mixed with the crisp autumn air. "Yes," she said finally. "It would have made all the difference in the world." Daniel nodded. He'd known the answer. Needed to hear it anyway. "I'm sorry." The words felt thin, inadequate, but they were all he had. "I'm sorry I wasn't the man you married. I'm sorry I let you down. I'm sorry Ethan grew up without knowing his father." His voice cracked slightly. He didn't try to hide it. "I can't change any of that, but I can try to be different now, even if you never see it, even if Ethan never knows." Clara picked up the envelope, held it in her hands, didn't open it. "If I never open this door for you again," she said slowly, "if I never let you meet Ethan, never give you another chance, you'll still walk away. You'll still let the trust stand, still leave us be." "Yes." "Why?" Daniel looked at her, at the gray in her hair, the lines around her eyes, the strength in her shoulders that hadn't been there 5 years ago. "Because doing the right thing isn't about getting something back. It's just about doing it." He put his hands in his pockets. "Took me 43 years to figure that out." "Pretty pathetic, I reckon." Something crossed Clara's face. Not a smile, not quite, but something close. "Okay." One word, soft, almost lost in the noise of the parking lot, but Daniel heard it, and something in his chest loosened, just a fraction. "Okay," he repeated. The school doors opened again. A last group of children emerged, among them the dinosaur backpack, the dark hair, the stubborn chin. Ethan spotted his mother and ran toward her. Then he saw Daniel, stopped, looked up with curious eyes. "Mommy, is that the man from before?" Clara glanced at Daniel. A decision flickered across her face. "Yes, honey, this is an old friend of Mommy's." "Oh." Ethan tilted his head, studied Daniel with the unfiltered directness of a child. "Are you sad? You look sad." Daniel crouched down, brought himself to the boy's eye level. "A little," he admitted, "but I'm working on it." Ethan considered this. Then he reached out and patted Daniel's arm. A small gesture. Clumsy. Kind. "My teacher says when you're sad, you should take deep breaths and think about something happy. Do you have something happy to think about?" Daniel looked at the boy. His son. This small person he'd never known, offering comfort to a stranger in a parking lot. "Yeah," he said. His voice was rough. I think I do now. Ethan nodded, satisfied. Then he grabbed Clara's hand and started pulling her toward their car. Bye, mister. He waved. A small wave, the kind children give without thinking about it. Daniel waved back. Clara paused at her car door, looked at him one last time. The trust papers, play, she said. I'll read them. She didn't say more, didn't promise anything. Just got in the car, buckled Ethan into his seat, and drove away. Daniel stood in the parking lot until her car disappeared around the corner. Then he walked to his own car, got in, started the engine. The ring box sat on the passenger seat. He picked it up, opened it. Read the inscription one more time. Always. He closed the box, set it down where he could see it. The road stretched ahead. He didn't know where he was going. Back to the city, maybe, or somewhere else entirely. It didn't matter right now. For the first time in 5 years, Daniel Carter wasn't running from anything. He was just moving forward, one day at a time, one right choice at a time, however long it took. There's a quiet that settles after a story like this, not the comfortable kind, the kind that sits heavy in the chest and stays a while, familiar, somehow, tender in places we forgot were still soft. Perhaps you recognize something in Daniel, the way he held on to that ring without opening the box, the way he stood in parking lots and motel rooms, trying to remember who he used to be. Many of us have stood in similar places, not literally, maybe, but somewhere inside ourselves, carrying something we couldn't put down, loving someone we couldn't reach, waiting for a door that might never open all the way. Some of us have been Clara too, building a life from pieces someone else left behind, learning to stop waiting, finding strength we never asked for. These things don't need to be resolved. They don't need to make sense or wrap up neatly. They're allowed to simply be unfinished, tender, ours. It's okay if this story sits with you a while. Some things aren't meant to settle. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.